This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
Be advised that the views and opinions of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
A dilemma is a situation in which one needs to choose.
Paano ako gagaling?
There's an ethical issue.
Enter the
Supposed
second.
to
Help first.
Medical Dilemma.
Hi, I'm Sonny Del Rosario, and you're tuned in to Medical Dilemma. According to the Department of Social Welfare and Development, there are about 6,000 cases of child abuse reported each year. And of this total number, 64% involve female victims. The DSWD also reported that they had filed around 150 cases of cyber pornography and child pornography from 2010 to 2013. But you know, just by traveling around Metro Manila alone, you can witness the harsh effects of some forms of child abuse. Street children roam the streets, and you can see them begging and sometimes committing petty crimes. In today's episode, we will talk about the ethical and legal concerns that surround child abuse, that surround our so-called broken angels. For our first segment, we have Dr. Ivy Patdu. Welcome to the show, Dr. Ivy. Okay. Dr. Ivy Patdu is a medico-legal consultant at the Asian Hospital Medical Center, and she is also the department chair of the Medico-Legal Department of Hospital ng Muntinlupa. Okay. She is also currently the legal consultant of the Department of Health Privacy Experts Group. Am I correct, Doctora?
Opo.
Okay. Now, let's share first some concepts about child abuse in the Philippines for our viewers' understanding. So my first question is, how do we define child abuse in the Philippine context?
Okay, child abuse basically is any act that will be detrimental to the child's health, safety, and normal development, and life, of course.
Okay, and
So that's a broad definition.
I see. And is the definition of child abuse in the Philippines different from how it is defined internationally?
It's no different. I think it's the same because we all basically follow the UN principles on the protection of the child.
Okay. Now, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention use 4 categories of child abuse. If I'm not mistaken, these are neglect, psychological or emotional abuse, sexual abuse, and physical abuse. Do we have the same 4 categories in the Philippine setting?
Yes, we have the same 4 categories under the law, but we must also be mindful that these are not delineated. Usually when there's one form of abuse, we cannot rule out that other forms of abuse also occur.
Okay. Could you give our viewers a brief description of each of these 4 categories?
Among the 4 categories, the most commonly reported is sexual abuse, which is anything that will subject a child to sexual molestation, such as rape, incest, pornography, child trafficking. These are all forms of child sexual abuse. Physical abuse refers to physically hitting the child, beating the child. The so-called shaken baby syndrome can be a product of physical abuse. And then there's neglect. This is commonly reported to the Department of Health. So under our jurisdiction, when we say neglect, they are careful to delineate that the neglect is not due to poverty. But neglect is when you deprive the child of basic needs, medical attention, education, food. So if it is not due to poverty, then it will be abuse. And then the other form is the psychological and emotional abuse. Based on the Philippine experience, this is poorly reported. But this is anything that will cause emotional and psychological trauma to the child.
Okay. Does the Republic Act 7610 seems to be that this is our main law against child abuse. But I went through the 7610 clauses, and I find that it deals more a lot with sexual exploitation, child trafficking, but little or not so much about the other forms of child abuse. Is my perception correct?
Well, I think your perception is correct in the sense that it is not as, the other forms of abuse are not as defined in the law. The focus is, as you said, on sexual abuse, child trafficking. But the law does include other forms of abuse, physical, emotional, psychological. And then it's lumped in one article entitled Other Forms of Abuse. Well, even if it's not defined specifically under the law, it will still be punishable. And while 7610 is the main law in the Philippines for child protection, there are other laws that apply to children as well. The law that was passed during the time of former President Marcos, the PD 603, is still, many of its provisions is still in effect today. And of course, the VAUSI, Anti-Violence Against Women and Children. So all this taken together encompass the framework for the legal protection of children.
Okay. Now, one form of so-called child abuse is corporal punishment. However, this seems to be a culturally defined factor in child abuse. If, let's say, a parent strikes a child because he or she would like to discipline the child, is this covered by the child abuse law?
I think it will depend on the type of corporal punishment that is being inflicted on the child. But remember that the law, as you said, does not define it. So if you hit your child, it is quite possible that you will be prosecuted for child abuse under RA 7610. But remember, just to note that in one of the reports of the Child Protection Unit of the Philippine General Hospital, they do notice that there is underreporting of physical abuse on children, and they attribute it partly to the fact that culturally it doesn't seem to be beyond normal when a parent uses corporal punishment on the child. In fact, you can imagine that if you see your neighbor, for example, hitting his child, would you be calling the police? Probably not, because that is like it's ingrained in our culture that parents discipline their children. But I think the question is, what would be acceptable to us as a society, whether now or in the future? Where do we draw the line on what would be acceptable kinds of discipline for children?
I see. Now, how does a healthcare professional proceed once he or she detects the suspected case or clear case of child abuse?
Okay, a healthcare professional under our current laws has a duty to report to at least to the Department of Social Welfare and Development any suspected case of child abuse. There might be penalties if they report, and there is immunity from liability in case that they fail to make this report. So this professional, especially those handling children, should recognize signs of child abuse, and if they recognize it, they should report it, even if it's just suspected, as long as they're doing it in good faith.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Patdu, for those enlightening views. We'll have to take a break for a while. Don't touch the channel. We'll be right back after a few words from our sponsors. Thank you so much.